Up next, please welcome Gilead Sciences' Doug Brooks, GMHC's Kelsey Louie, and Darwin Thompson of NAESM for a session produced by our underwriter.
Right.
Hi. I think I just lost my mic. Uh-oh. But you can hear me, right? Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can now. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We thought we would just have a little conversation about HIV in the domestic arena here in the United States. And I'm just going to pose a couple questions to Kelsey and Darwin. You know, so 35 years ago, the CDC announced first cases of HIV/AIDS in the United States. And we've had rapid development around prevention and treatment that has really transformed the landscape. But I want to ask you what you think are the biggest achievements from your perspectives in the impact of HIV and AIDS. Start with you, Kelsey.
Sure. Well, with the progress that we've made with HIV medications, we're seeing for the first time a population that's aging with HIV. In fact, for the people over 55 with HIV make up more than a quarter of the people, of the 1.2 million people living with HIV in the US. And so what that means is that we're going to need to look at HIV and age-related issues and how they impact one another.
Thanks. Darwin?
So I think to kind of piggyback off what Kelsey said is that, so there have been so many advances in treatment as a whole. So when you marry the concepts of people living with HIV being adherent to their medication, then they are less likely to spread the virus up to 96%. But then you look at it and you marry the two with people who are HIV negative and adherent to medication to prevent them from contracting HIV, then they also are up to 90% effective in transmitting the virus. So when you marry the two concepts, it creates a perfect storm of being able to really prevent people from contracting HIV in 2016.
Yeah, thanks. But you know, part of the story today is here's unfinished business, and we have lots of it. You just highlighted some statistics. When we look at African American gay and bisexual men, diagnoses have increased 87% between 2005 and 2014. If the current diagnoses persist, CDC projects that 1 in 2 Black men and Black gay men and 1 in 4 Latino men will become HIV positive in their lifetime. That was just released last year, right? And then for our transgender community members, more than 1 in 5 transgender women in the United States are HIV positive. And researchers have estimated that as many as 56% of Black transgender women are HIV positive. And as you know, Doran, in the U.S. South, not only are we looking at disproportionate infections, we're looking at disproportionate mortality. We're still seeing opportunistic infections that we who live in Washington and New York and San Francisco think we're over. So I want to ask, based on your experience, what are we not doing in communities that we should be doing to address HIV? And I'll start with you, Darwin.
So I think there's this concept of whole health. And so when I look at whole health, it's really addressing social determinants that may affect someone who could be at risk of contracting HIV. So whether it's mental health, substance abuse counseling, those types of things. So I think that there's a type of, we always want to medicalize HIV and not necessarily understand that there's something that somebody may be going through first. They may came out of poverty, they may have low education levels, and they may not understand HIV prevention messaging that's out there. But then there's this last concept of really getting into the foundation of getting into schools and really teaching comprehensive sex education in schools. Okay, I'm back. Teaching comprehensive sex education in schools to really create behavior change at an early stage versus trying to create a behavior change at 21, 22, 23 when there's learned behaviors already.
Yeah, thanks. And Kelsey, actually, before we go, because we have the time, you want to respond to that as well? What aren't we doing?
Yeah, well, I think what we're not doing is we're not necessarily following the data. We have the data to understand where the epidemic is and where the epidemic is hitting the hardest. And so what we need to do is we need to move away from a one-size-fits-all model of HIV prevention and care and really target the the populations that we want to make change and have individualized, tailored interventions for specific populations.
Yeah, thanks. And what real-world ways are you seeing complacency and stigma driving HIV?
Sure. So we all know that HIV and AIDS thrive in the shadows of shame and stigma. And that shame and stigma causes people to not want to get tested, to not seek the medical attention that they need. It also prevents people from utilizing a variety of HIV prevention methods. And that's something that we need to address. With complacency, the young people today, they didn't live through the 80s when HIV and AIDS decimated an entire community. And so we need to do what we can to teach them about HIV and to help them understand that they need to take care of their bodies and to take care of their own health.
Terrific. And so if we think about lessons learned over the course of the epidemic and how they can get us to an even better future of health equity for all, because I think that's what we ultimately are all striving for, right, is health equity for all. And in this particular moment in our nation's history, any thoughts about what will get us to health equity for all?
So I think that one of the things I often coin is that HIV is a social justice issue. And so with it being a social justice issue, more now than ever, do we need to collaborate with different organizations, different people to understand that regardless if HIV doesn't affect you, it's affecting someone that you may know. And non-traditional partnerships are going to be the key to kind of moving the needle forward when it comes to really getting to zero within the next couple of years, as our strategy says.
Put you on the spot here because we didn't rehearse this part. For example?
So like here, so having a conversation at the Atlantic where traditionally there hasn't been a space for HIV really gets HIV into mainstream thoughts process, and then may get somebody in here to say at the end of the day, maybe I need to go get tested or something to that effect. Beautiful.
Thoughts, Kelsey?
So, I recently took part of a project that put out a report, HIV the Long View, and that brought together a few community-based organizations with the help of the Future Foundation to look at or to shift the conversation around HIV to include the fact that people are living longer with HIV. And what does that mean for all of us in terms of what we need to do today in order to address the epidemic? And one of the findings that we came out with was the idea that, as I said earlier, we need to move away from a one-size-fits-all model of HIV prevention and care, especially for those populations where HIV is hitting the hardest. The other thing that we need to do is we all need to take part in ending or fighting to end stigma and complacency. And one way to do that is for all of us to, one, get tested ourselves, and have conversations with people, especially our younger folks in our lives, to help them understand that they can be empowered to take care of their own health. And those are the things that we can do today to take care of our future.
Yeah, because when the studies are done, the surveys are done, a lot of the people, in particular young gay men, gay and bisexual, same-gender loving men, often report not realizing that their sexual behavior is high risk. So thinking about that, if you had one last thing to say to this audience of really smart, caring, talented people, what would that be?
Well, I would repeat what I said. I would say talk to the people you love and care about HIV and AIDS. Talk to them. There are a number of HIV prevention methods as well as HIV treatment. Help them understand that their lives matter and that HIV is something that we should be talking about.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that so we have the right tools in place, we have the right leadership in place at this moment to really end the epidemic. But I think that it's really important that everyone out here, whether it's via informal conversations or social media, really push home the message that people should know about HIV, that people should get tested. There should be no stigma, but also then there should be no homophobia, racism, those types of things as well, because those are driving factors, as Kelsey said, that really push the epidemic and keeps the fuel to the fire around new infections every day.
So thank you guys for joining us. Gilead is thrilled to be a presenting sponsor of this event and really thrilled that you said yes to helping us have this conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.